Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, and today I am filming my November TBR. It's been a while since I filmed a video, so I'm kind of just trying to get back into the swing of things. So today I have like quite a few books that I want to talk about. As always, I'm not sure how many of these I'll get to. I probably won't get to all of them, to be completely honest, but it's always fun for me to kind of have some sort of like list, something to motivate me. I love like crossing things off like lists. Like it gives me like this kind of rush. I don't know. Yeah, I have a huge stack of books here. It's not like incredibly huge, but I also have some audiobooks which have been really helpful for my reading. This month I kind of wanted to focus more on starting new series as opposed to finishing them. There are still some books here that are like continuations, but I have so many like firsts in a series on my shelves, and I kind of want to just start getting into those and like figuring out what I actually want to like devote my time to. I think that's all I have to like preface this by. So I'll start with the physical books in like no particular order. The first one is Deep Blue by Jennifer Donnelly. This is the first book in, I want to say it's the Waterfire saga. This is about a princess. Her mother is like the queen of like the merfolk kingdom, or a specific mermaid kingdom, and I think she has some sort of vision, or she figures out that there is something brewing, and she and her best friend have to go on this journey to prevent a war breaking out between like the merfolk. I'm not sure if this falls into like the YA genre or if it's a bit younger. It's from Disney Hyperion, and like their books kind of tend to skew towards like middle grade to very young, like teen. But yeah, I really love fantasy with like a kind of nautical, aquatic type vibe, whether that be pirates or just like actual like sea fantasy. I've never heard anything about this. I've never seen anyone talk about this, but it looks great. And again, most of these books you probably already know if you watch some of my videos. Again, most of my books used, and this was there. I also have The Crowns Game by Evelyn Skye. This is, I think this is a duology, YA with like Russian fantasy inspired elements. I'm not sure if it actually takes place in Russia. I see St. Petersburg mentioned. This is, I'm assuming, a fantasy romance based off of the synopsis, but we have two characters, and I think they're like, I'm not sure if they're the only ones, but we have two characters that have like magical fantasy abilities. I think they're called enchanters, and they're kind of pitted against each other to like a game of death. I'm assuming they fall in love with each other. I don't think I ever heard many people talk about this book. I think I might have seen like arcs or like people mention that they have this book, but I've never actually seen someone talk about it. So in terms of like what's the tea, I don't really know. So it says that one of the characters can summon snow and turn ash into gold, and then another character can see through walls and conjure bridges out of thin air. It sounds interesting, and the cover looks pretty cool. So there's that. I also have Serafina by Rachel Hartman. I think this is a really well liked novel. This is about a young woman named Serafina, and I think she is a court musician or something. In this world, humans and dragons kind of try to coexist. It sounds like there's some sort of tension between like the two groups, and then at some point a member of the royal family is murdered, and Serafina and the prince kind of are left to figure out what happened. So there's a little bit of a mystery. It looks great, and I think this is a duology, and I already have the second book on my shelves unread as well. If I really like it, I can just jump into the next book. After that, I also have Splintered by A.G. Howard. This is a Alice in Wonderland retelling, reimagining, and we follow a young woman who can hear the thoughts of plants and insects. Our main character is also distantly related to the actual Alice from the Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I've only ever read one book series or one other book where like a character is descended of a fictional character that was actually real. I've read one other book that did that, and it was A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallero, I think. And in that book, our main character was distantly related to Sherlock Holmes. I think it's a cool concept, and I'm all down for books like that. Let me know if you know any other books that have that kind of twist on stories. I think it's really interesting. I also have like 4 books by A.G. Howard, and I think, well, granted, I think 3 of them all take place within the same story. I think it's like a trilogy, but I also have another book by this author that is a Phantom of the Opera retelling, and I don't think it's connected. Either way, I have tons of books by this author and I've read none of them. So this next book was actually on my October TBR, and I 100% will not get to it. And it is the first in the series, and that is A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. This is the first book in the Gemma Doyle series. In this, we follow a young woman named Gemma Doyle, and she has grown up in India, and Gemma's mother has a lot of secrets, and the day that Gemma's mother is trying to like kind of confess or like give her history, talk about who she is, Gemma's mother dies, and Gemma is sent to England to go to like a girls' school for like misbehaved young women type stuff. This is the Victorian era. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. And so it's basically like reform school. Gemma's also having some visions that are very scary, and when she gets sent to this school, some powers start brewing, and this is also a portal fantasy, so if you're interested in that, I would recommend this because I do remember really liking this. I just never finished this trilogy, and I think I finished the second book, really enjoying that as well. So I kind of really want to finish this up, but it's been so long, I need to reread this. I'm also going to pick up Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is the first book in the Nevermore series. I'm not sure if it's going to be a trilogy or much longer, but this is a middle grade series about our main character Morgan, and she's cursed, or people think she's cursed, and she kind of takes the blame for anything bad that happens in her town. And then one day someone whisks her away to this magical place. I'm not sure if it's a school or something. It's middle grade, and I love middle grade fantasy. I've heard really good reviews. I've never heard anything bad about this. For the most part, really great reviews, and yeah, middle grade just makes me feel really, really happy. The font is pretty huge, and so is the line spacing, so I think I can get through this pretty quickly. It's middle grade. So I also have Sabriel by Garth Nix. This is, I want to say, a trilogy about our main character who is like a necromancer. That's all I really know. I know the series is really well loved. Don't know much else about that. I just really like the look of this mass market. I don't know why, and it's like beaten and worn away in like just the right spots. It's like perfectly used. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense to me. I also have a book that I've never heard anyone speak about. I literally saw this on my shelves, and my used bookstore sells these mass markets, or like any mass market, like $3 or less. So I picked this up, and that is Blood Rights by Kristen Painter. Again, never heard anyone talk about this. This is a vampire story, which I've been really wanting more vampire stories. Our main character is a human who's been specially bred to feed vampires, and I'm not sure what she's gone through in her life. So, and I'm assuming this is also like adult, so there might be some trigger warnings that I don't know about. Her patron, one of her patrons, I'm not sure, is murdered, and she becomes a prime suspect, and I think she like runs away. She runs away, and she meets this outcast vampire who's like cursed, and they go on this journey to do something. I'm not sure if they're solving the crime or if there's something else involved. But yeah, it sounds interesting. I'm more motivated to pick this up. Not obviously, I have never heard anyone talk about this, so review wise I don't know, but I'm just looking for vampires, and I'm hoping that it's like giving me like gothic vampires, which I love. So that's it for physical books. I do have some stuff on hold from my library, and audiobooks have been really helpful for my reading, because if it wasn't for audiobooks, I'd be reading probably like 4 or 5 books a month as opposed to like 10. This is a huge part of my reading. I have Escaping from Houdini by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the 3rd book in the, I hate the name of the series, but the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. This whole series is about a young woman named Audrey Rose, and she wants to be like a medical examiner, coroner type person. She's a woman, and this is the Victorian era, so that's not usually possible, but her uncle is already working within the field, so she has some privileges, and she's had some opportunities given to her because of that. And don't get me wrong, she's like really smart and stuff, But yeah, each book kind of centers around some sort of like retelling type character. We had Jack the Ripper, we had Dracula, and now we have Houdini, who was like a real person. I know that, but yeah, I'm not sure specifically what the plot of this one is. Don't ever really go in with like details, because a big part of this is the mystery, and it's like a historical mystery, so don't need details. I mentioned a few times how kind of disappointing the series has been for me. It's entertaining well enough. If I had went into the series not hearing any hype, I'd probably like it more. But the one thing that's always talked about with this series is the romance, and I could care less. I could not care less, because the love interest had like the worst introduction. I personally didn't care for him when I first met him. I also didn't care for the like beginning of their relationship when we first saw them together. It got a bit better in the second book, which is Hunting Prince Dracula. I don't have high expectations, so maybe I'll like this more. It's no sweat off my back, since I also borrowed it from the library. I also have Ember Queen by Lars Sebastian. This is the third and final book in the Ash Princess trilogy. I mentioned before how this isn't necessarily an under-hyped book, but it's more so under-talked about. I think a lot of people would really enjoy this. It's about a young girl whose country is taken over, raided, her mother was murdered, and now there's like a new empire ruling her country, and it's not a great situation for her. She's very mistreated. She's like beaten. She's gone through a lot of pretty tough stuff, and this whole trilogy is about her trying to regain what is rightfully hers. There's some like elemental magic at play here, which is really cool. I want to see more of that in this last book. Obviously, it's also very politically motivated. Our main character is not like physically imposing. She's not like physically like a baddie. So political intrigue was like a huge factor in the first book, and I really like that. Some holds that are coming through are Lady Night by Tamora Pierce. This is the fourth book in the Protector of the Small series, which I've talked about before on this channel. This is about a young woman named Kelladry, and Kelladry wants to be a Knight of the Realm because of stuff that has happened in Tamora Pierce's other series, the Song of the Lioness Quartet. Women can now like apply and train to become knights, but that doesn't necessarily make it easy, and Kelladry is the first woman to actually publicly go through this trial, this ordeal. It's like a 4 years? I think it's like a 4-year journey for anyone trying to become a knight, but she has a pretty tough time. Some people are still very backwards. A lot of her peers don't treat her well. You can probably imagine that the entire series is about her trying to get a knighthood. And it starts off when she's like a page, and then she has to become a squire, and then she has to squire for a knight, and this whole thing. So you can imagine this is the fourth and last book in the series. You kind of know at what training she's at. I hope that's not like a spoiler, but Tamora Pierce is like hands down one of my favorite fantasy authors of all time. She's the OG. I love her books so much. Tamora Pierce has made me cry so many times. I cried like a baby in the like last book in the Becca Cooper series. I also cried in the third book of the Protector of the Small series, and she'll probably make me cry reading this book or listening to this book. I should also be getting Silverborn by Patricia Briggs. This is the 5th book in the Mercy Thompson urban fantasy series, another book series that I've talked about immensely on my channel. This is about a young woman. Well, she's not super young. She's like in her 20s. Her name is Mercy Thompson. She is a mechanic, a Native American woman. I believe specifically her father was part of the Blackfeet Nation, and like a lot of urban fantasies, there's usually some sort of mystery at hand, and our main character kind of gets involved. This is definitely adult. There is like romance and like sexual content. Mercy has gone through a lot of stuff in her life that has caused her some trauma. That being said, it's still a fairly lighthearted series. It's not super like grim dark or anything, but it's really entertaining. and each book has progressively gotten better and better, which isn't always the case for really long-winded series. I think the series is like on book 12 or something, but yeah, I really enjoy them. I love urban fantasy. I love how I can literally just go like on autopilot when I listen to urban fantasy. It's great. I think the series is great. I recommend if you're looking for something like fun, fast. I should also be getting The Deep by Alma Katsu. This is, I think, a standalone. I want to say it's horror or like psychological thriller. This has to do with the Titanic and the sinking of the Titanic. In what way, I'm not totally sure. I'm not sure if it's like a ghost ship situation. Know nothing about this, like absolutely nothing. I just picked it up because it looked cool, like the cover looked really interesting. I also have The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaValle. I don't know specifically much about this book, but I have heard like great things in general about this author and the book, like just positives. I'm assuming it's horror. I'm reading some blurbs and I see like Lovecraft thrown in there. I also see some like indications that race might play a big part in this. Really great writing as well, but this should come in pretty soon. So that's all I have planned for the month of November. Again, some things might come up and I might not get to all of these. I mean, I'm 99% sure I won't get to all of these, but some things might also like catch my interest that are not mentioned here. As always, if you want to know like in real time like what I'm up to, I like 100% recommend going to my Instagram. That's where I'm like really active, like every day pretty much. I'll link all my socials down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.